everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faitheism Project podcast. My name is Alan Katz, and I have always been grateful to Hebrew School for making me the atheist that I am today.
And my name is Randy Lovejoy, and I am a pastor without a church. Welcome.
Kaboom.
Kaboom. There it is.
And there you are.
That's right. And I'm excited today, which you'll find out why in just a minute. But yeah, I'm excited about today's podcast.
Indeed, after spending all day driving around this crazy city.
That's right.
It is madness. It's funny. Just before we jump into it, it's the pandemic has its impact on traffic in Los Angeles is remarkable. You never know from day to day whether there will be traffic when you expect it or there won't be traffic when you expect it.
That's right.
It is. This must be one of the signs of the apocalypse.
There you go. Which means our conversation may not even be relevant, if that happens too quickly. But we'll see. We'll see.
Well, with the subject of a pandemic in mind,
yes,
we have guests today. We have Randy's son Lucas and his. How should we describe their relationship?
I think girlfriend works.
Girlfriend, okay.
Girlfriend, Karen, yeah.
I didn't want to forget Karen, who you will get to meet, and we're going to pose a question today, having to do with what one generation owes other generations, if anything.
Yep.
With that in mind, let's open the door.
Here it is,
and let them in.
All right. Hello, Karen.
Hi. He went to go change his shirt.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Timing. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Karen. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? May I ask how old you are?
Yes, I'm 21. I just turned 21.
Okay.
Not just, but in July last year.
Cool.
So 22 this year.
You are in your 22nd year, is how we think it. There you go.
Yes.
So she's just a little younger than we are, Alan, right? So that's,
Just a tiny bit.
That's right.
A couple of generations, actually, but okay, we'll come to that. And you are studying?
Yes, I go to the University of Massachusetts. There's 4 locations. So I go to the flagship one. Is that what it's called? The main one?
Okay.
In Amherst, I study public health. I used to be on the pre-med track, but I'm not on it anymore. So just public health for now. And
Why
public health?
Why the shift from one to the other, if I may?
Yeah, I felt like my passions were elsewhere and not in the medical field. I always wanted to go into the medical field, but I don't know. Once you start learning about this stuff, I also started doing other things on the side, and I was like, I kind of actually like these other things more. I don't necessarily need to go like the doctor route that has always been ingrained in me.
Part of the point of the exercise of going to college and university is to refine the search.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what you did. So it worked.
It did.
Bravo.
It did some pruning. Cool. Yeah, I started I started a YouTube channel like the end of high school, but took it seriously when college started. So then I realized I enjoyed that more than, school. If I said I was going to post a video tomorrow, but there was a homework assignment due the same day, I would choose to edit instead of do homework.
Hey,
so I was
you are a young woman after my own heart. I hear you. All right, let's bore in on that a little bit. What was your YouTube? What is your YouTube channel? Channel is ongoing?
Yes, it is ongoing.
Okay. Hey, you might as well promote it while you're here. What is your YouTube channel and what is it all about?
My channel, it's called King Cora, which is kind of like a nickname that I gave myself. I wanted to do, okay, Cora is like half of my last name. And I wanted to do something with like KK, but I could do Karen Cora, which it was for a while. And then I think I went through a phase of like thinking like I was so big and mighty. So I was like, oh, I'm going to change it to King and not Queen because kings have more power. Or something like that. So yeah, that's the name of it. I just honestly just video my life on like every day, not every day, but most of it is just about, you know, kind of like video diaries, like a day in the life in college or like a week in my life, some outfits, you know, lifestyle and fashion type of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, right.
You know, we're going to talk about generations today, and I cannot tell you how envious I am of your generation that you have. All right, social media is perilous.
Yes, honestly.
It is perilous. Be that as it may, social media plus all the other forms that exist, the forms that through which one can express oneself. I am just. Well, hey, look, I guess we're getting to do it here, Randy and I. We're getting to do it, but you know, we have to come into the game late. It boggles my mind to think where this will go years and years and years from now.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I'd get together with two friends and we had a cassette recorder and we'd act like we were DJs on a radio station, but then we'd record it on a cassette tape.
A cassette tape.
But that was like it, you know, and it didn't go anywhere. And, you know, it wasn't like going to anybody else.
Don't be humble, Dad.
Sorry?
You know, it blew up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, I remember my name. My DJ name was Bartholomew Bias. That was my name.
Bartholomew Bias.
That was about as creative as we could get at that point, and there was no way to connect with, you know, with a wider group of people. You had to go through definite channels and institutions and all that stuff to have that kind of access. So it's crazy what you can do today.
Yeah, I was thinking, just on the topic, millennials gave that to our generation. We didn't create social media.
No.
We didn't build any of that technology.
No.
But it was given to us for free.
That's interesting. That's interesting. It's just you guys are figuring out how to like accelerate it, 10x the whole experience.
Right, because we grew up with it, and Sam's generation even more.
That's his younger brother, my youngest son.
Right, they can't even conceive of the world without it.
No.
Right.
We still can. We're the last generation to be able to conceive, oh, there was life before smartphones.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, there was actually a time when there weren't cell phones. And you know, I remember taking Sam, Lucas's
20 years ago.
Yeah, Lucas's brother. I remember walking past an old payphone. They'd taken the payphone out. There was that kind of the structure of it. And then there was this cover underneath it, a plastic cover, you know, for a binder. And I remember Sam just being like, what is that? And I said, that was something called white pages and yellow pages. When we, you know, and it was like, oh my gosh, we have that's crazy stuff, you know, just huge books with everybody's phone numbers and people would put ads in the yellow pages.
We lived in the Stone Age, Randy.
That's right.
But something interesting about that, it's pretty hard to find the information of, like, I'm reading a book right now, or I just finished the most interesting parts about the economics of the art world. There's tons of names of art critics and art dealers and things in the book. You look them up on LinkedIn, their phone number is hidden. You either have to have gold or you have to be connected with them to be able to access that information. But if I had read that book and then I just looked them up in the yellow pages, I would have been able to just cold call them and it would have been a bit easier.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Because that's like the opposite of what you think with everything. That means there's less access to that information than there was before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess you would have just had to have an unlisted number or something to not get in the phone book,
Right.
which some people did. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, you had to pay to not
Yeah.
be in the book.
That's right. Yeah.
It cost
I
you
didn't know
money
that.
for your information to be unavailable.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's-
Well, I mean, I think we're already in the topic, man. I mean, I don't think we even announced it, but we're already in it. So
Well, yes, we kind of hinted at it. It's generations.
yeah. Yeah. You did say something about that. I'm just
we did,
being
but
my
no one-
age. You know, I forget things now that I'm older. So you guys don't know what that's like yet, but you know, you just start to.
But you will. Now,
Scary.
the normal way of approaching the topic is for our generation to be all guilt-ridden about the state of the world and the state in which we're going to leave it to your generation.
Well, what are there any problems in the world today, Alan? I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I don't really understand what you're.
But there's also an assumption
That's
that
true.
the world that our generation was handed was a great world.
That's right. That's right.
There's a remarkable amount of mythologizing, shall we say, that the world that we were handed, okay, the world war ended.
Right.
And America in the 1950s went through a period of big growth, and we became we really became a world power. But was that world really a great world? I mean, were not the seeds of our current disaster not sown already in that world? So I'm asking, is this really a pretense that one generation owes either your generation or the generation that's behind us, that preceded us, that's still here, won't let go? Do we owe them anything? Do we owe you anything? And hey, do you owe us anything?
Okay.
Go.
I think, and I'm sure that a lot of people have been doing or trying to do this for, years now, writing books, teaching, and publishing articles, newspapers and all that. But I think that previous generations, or what we would owe the next generation, would be kind of like the truth, because I think not a lot of people know in depth or the truth about what happened. Because if we knew exactly how life was before, then we can take notes, we can take lessons into what we're living now. But I feel like we come into the world with no knowledge and kind of a vague assumption. And although we go to school, we learn about history, we learn about Greeks and Mayan Empire and Aztecs and stuff. It's not, I feel like it's not exactly what we would need or what would equip us in day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that now, especially like socially, culturally, where people are lost. Because you were saying, Randy, is there any problems in the world today? Some people genuinely think there are none. Mm-hmm. And because they don't know. Mm-hmm. So I think just knowledge and education, and like honestly, and not any covered up stuff or brushed through stuff or sugar coated, but what really happened, in anything, in any area. That's what I say, the truth.
But when we're being dishonest about the past, who are we serving? Mm. And the we is, of course, is a generic we. Yeah. But yeah, when that happens, who is being serviced by the falsity?
The generation doing the storytelling, I think, or a false sense of, gratitude and maybe self-satisfaction, but it's hindering future generations without them knowing, So it's kind of like when you hide something in the moment and you feel good about it. And then as time goes on, it's like a bigger and bigger hole. It's like, okay. And now I don't know how to say it. I don't know if it'll make
What you're
sense.
saying is really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's a children's story where inside of a house, there's a little dragon, a baby dragon, and the kid sees it. The baby dragon in the house. He's like, hey, mom, hey, dad, look, there's a baby dragon in the house. And then his mom and dad are like, no, there's no dragon. What are you talking about? We don't see one. And then after they said that, it gets bigger. And then the kid's like, hey, look, the dragon got bigger. And then they're like, no, what are you talking about? We don't see a dragon.
Right.
And every time they say that, it keeps growing. Eventually, the dragon is bigger than the house. And it takes for it to grow over the size of their entire house before the parents are finally like, oh, look, there's a dragon.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of truth and honesty and authenticity. You know.
Oh, wait, sorry, real quick. I forgot and after they say that the dragon is there, then it gets really small again and they cannot hug it and they like
exactly. No, that's exactly it.
Like the ending of the story,
it's like there are a lot of problems that if you just acknowledge them, you've already come a long way to handling it, but you've got to like admit it's there, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of it.
Right.
You know, and I think the other thing that strikes me is, you know, there are so many things that are happening now that we're experiencing it for the first time, but they've actually happened, at least in some way, a bunch of times before. And it's just, you know, like some people, I was talking to a guy today about the pandemic. He said, right when it started, he said, I did all this study on the Spanish influenza or whatever, you know, and he said, you know, there were so many dynamics going on there that are going on here. I mean, yeah, it's different context and all that, but it's a similar response to a disease that was going crazy. And to me, that's part of why history's so important, and what generations can help each other with is, well, how did your generation go through this? Not expecting them to do it perfectly, but it's just like, how did you do this and what can we learn from it so that we don't have to, you know, go through that whole same learning process that you had to go through, you know?
Yeah. And even on a small scale, because when we think about it globally and nationally,
Right.
like Alan was saying, that is a big burden to carry. Like, oh, we have to kind of equip the next generation into what them coming into the world. But I see it in maybe like families too, like parents and individually. I think that if that it started there, and like, hey, my mom tells me, oh, hey, okay, I was actually dealing with the same thing that you are going through right now, or oh, I've been there, or I did this and this and this, complete honesty and truth, then it would nothing would feel new. It wouldn't feel like, oh, this is something new that I'm going through. But I think a lot of, not maybe a lot, but parents or older generation tend to think like, oh no, I did everything right when I was your age. You know, why are you doing this? And why are you reacting like this to this? Instead of kind of thinking and reflecting on what they did back then and knowing that this is on your world.
In your mind, Karen, our generation does owe you the truth.
Right.
Okay. Now let's press a little further. Okay. So though we might try to escape that obligation to you, you insist we cannot escape that obligation. We owe you the truth. What truth do we owe you?
Right. I was going to say, it's very interesting. At the base of that statement says that there is one truth about the past that we can learn about. There is something from history, that is a story that is intact enough. This would be my definition of what truth is. But to see the story, either one, from a sufficient amount of viewpoints around the events. So maybe, and I don't know, then you have to choose the criteria for the viewpoints. But for me, I would say it's sufficient truth. And then this is interesting because now I'm describing it subjectively. So it's very hard and slippery to figure out what is a specific truth. Because if I were to say this is a sufficient truth for me. It might not be for somebody else, but we still would all agree. I would assume that there is some truth to be extracted from history that we should be able to learn, especially with the internet and stuff, but it's really hard to sift through what's accurate and what's not.
But of course, as we're learning, as we're learning with the internet, you can invent truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, I mean, to me, like what a previous generation can give to the next generation is their experience of a particular situation and how they handled it. And then it's up to the next generation to decide what applies, what doesn't in that experience. And I think that's where the truth's going to be found is in that. But, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that was true in our day that's not really true anymore today. That doesn't mean it wasn't true then. It's just that the context has changed so much. Maybe it's that it's not even relevant, you know, that it might not even be relevant. Like, you know, I know how to do a really good phone message in a different voice. So, you know, but it's like, that's totally irrelevant to cell phones and everything. Cause it's like, you don't even have a phone message machine anymore. Right. So It's like, there's some stuff, I mean, that's just technical, but there's some stuff that it's just not relevant. But so, you know, I think that's part of it.
But in terms of getting at the truth, do either of you know the Japanese film Rashomon?
Oh, I've heard of it. It's like one of the OGs, one of the first, like whenever I look up on a list, it's always pops up first. I think I've seen a bit of it.
It's about an incident happens. There's a fight and it's time for justice. And everyone is brought before the local lord to say what happened. And we get the incident from all these points of view and they conflict.
Yeah.
Someone's not telling the truth. And at the end, there's one woman who is an absolutely neutral observer. Mm-hmm. And her version of the truth is, yeah, a little like some of them really, but suddenly you understand why everyone has their version of the truth. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's frighteningly subjective.
Well, and again, so much of it depends on context. Either your point of view, where were you standing when it happened? You know, what were you thinking? Who do you know in the people that got into the fight? I mean, there's so many different things that come into play with how you even interpret what's gone on, you know, and so from that human standpoint. But that's why I think, you know, like one of my favorite books in the Bible is Proverbs, because there's all this wisdom that to even get into Proverbs, it had to go through a lot of people learning some stuff, right? And then they try to put it into a little pithy phrase that's passed on to the next generation, you know, and some of them are totally irrelevant to our situation because a lot of it was more of an agricultural society or whatever. But it's like, it's this idea of we're going to put together little sayings from our life experience that a number of generations have found to be true, and we want to pass that on to you, but you're still going to have to apply it into your life situation. You can't just take a proverb. You've got to like think about it and translate it into your own life. So I don't know, but all of that to me, that gets to, yes, there are some strategic and wise and true things, but it's just, it's going to, you've got to figure out how to apply it in your life. Truth has to be in a context.
Let me put that into the form of a question.
Yeah.
All right, Karen and Lucas. All right, you got to go find truth. Mm-hmm. Where do you find truth? How do you find truth? How do you know it's the truth?
Yeah. For me, truth needs to be absolute, because truth means something that stays and doesn't change and is concrete in a way that things that have to do with, you know, time and such are not. So doesn't change. You know, it has something to do with time. And
so it's eternal.
yeah, it's eternal. It's eternal. It does not change. And that's why books like the Bible can stay around for so long, is because they've gotten at some truth that even when time changes, you know, even if in Proverbs it's talking about an agricultural society, there are still things that were said that relate to us and the way humans think, and that really matter today. So for me, yeah, it's a great word. Truth is eternal, and truth is God at the end of the day, you know. For me, 100%. I thank him for it every day when I wake up. I need that.
Sure. No, I understand your feeling about it. And why you would end there. And that would be the ultimate truth. That makes absolute sense.
Right. And that's why eternal is a great way to describe it.
And I think, again, you know, part of what I hear in that too is, you know, because I think one of the ways to get at the meaning of a word is how is it used? You know, not just what is, you know, but, and to me, part of what you've said there, Lucas, is that part of the role of truth is to give us some sense of grounding, of direction, in the midst of an existence where there's a lot of stuff that's confusing and you don't know which way to go. You don't know what to do. But in trying to find truth, you're trying to find something that you can kind of, you know, really bolt yourself down to reality, even with everything that's changing and moving and all that.
I had a vision when we were talking earlier, when Karen was saying how the other generations owe us truth, which again, I would 100% agree. And when because I initially brought up, you know, what is truth? We have to find something that's probably objective. When you start talking and trying to define truth just philosophically, it goes like this. Because I said, you know, 20 or 30 thoughts at once. Oh, you know, what if it's from this person? What if you try to define it? What is it? When you try to define truth without something that is eternal and you try to describe it in society today or in your own head or anything like that, the bottom falls out and you can just keep going down into the abyss for however long you want. And that's why it's very important to have the eternal, because that isn't a part of that, you know, abyss. It's separate.
And it's kind of that meaning of truth that's always made me think it was sort of a little odd, are saying, well, it's true for me, because it's like, well, is true the right word to use anymore if that's what you're saying? And it depends on how you're using true, but it's like, if it's true for you, what you're saying is, well, it's just for me, it's not for you, not for anybody else. And it's like, well, so that's a different definition of truth then, because like it's not eternal truth, it's more like
personal truth.
A personal truth. I have a happy, my synapses fire in a happy way in my brain when it's mentioned. You know, it's like I don't know what to do with that.
But there has to be some empirical truth we all agree on. It's day, not night.
Yeah.
You know, it's raining. It's snowing.
How about math? 1 + 1 = 2. That's always an interesting one for me, because it seems kind of separate from it's the such a long question. You know, there's hours podcasts on it. Did we invent or did we discover? Because it seems to hold no matter, you know, with us or without. So it's a very interesting.
And even the question of why does it? Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but it's like, why in the heck does this work? That just seems.
Why does 1 + 1 = 2?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
but then again,
or 4 or.
If you remember from the novel 1984, part of what the government was able to do was to make you agree that 1 + 1 = 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that they've been able to do that right now. We don't even have to look to 1984; just look to 2022.
Orwell seems to have been onto something.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. That ain't good.
Right.
Well,
one of the other things that I think, I'm just going to throw this in.
Well, I wanted to give Karen a chance to answer this same question.
Please, go for it.
So stick a pin in where you are. We're going to come back to it.
No problem.
But I wanted to give Karen.
I was definitely running off on a rabbit trail.
Okay. But I wanted to, before we got too far down any of these roads, right. Karen.
So what is truth? Yeah, when you were asking that question, my mind honestly went to the same place Lucas's did, and I think of like day to day when I'm like, okay, I'm really scared about this thing, or I'm really nervous about this thing. My brain tells me, okay, go back to what's true, and then I'm immediately like, okay, well, actually, I shouldn't be scared because I have God. That's what's true. Or I shouldn't be nervous because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's true. So my mind is always going back to like, okay, what is true? But when you think of a truth that like everyone can agree on, I'm lost for that one. So I feel like I think that's what has been dividing us for so long, is because nobody can agree on one thing.
And if we do, God might set us to the other ends of the earth.
Well, let me ask this question. Okay. All right. So if you're advocating as a way to find truth, what would you advocate to someone who does not believe in God, or finds the idea of God as the receptacle for truth? A hard concept, because, well, all right, if you ask 3 different people what God is, it's entirely possible you'll get 3 different answers.
Yeah.
Especially if they're not all Christian.
That's a good question.
That is a good question, because
that's why I asked it.
Right. Yeah, because immediately I want to say Jesus or God or read the Bible, you know.
Understood.
But if someone who is not receptive or open to that, then
but is seeking the very same thing.
Seeking truth.
Is that the only place to find it?
Genuinely, I think so. Because I think that when I was seeking truth, I was just running in circles and like lost, you know, because there's so many different paths you could take. And there's so much truths out there. You know, people look at the stars for truth, or tarot cards for truth, you know, bit like philosophy for truth, and all these different, you know, Hinduism, Islam. So there's multiple truths, and there's multiple things or routes that one could take. So the possibilities are endless. But I feel like truth is whatever fulfills you. I don't know, or whatever I found to fulfill me.
Well, you make an excellent case, Karen. You know, all any of us can ever know is the world from our own particular point of view. There's no way for you to climb inside my head. I can't climb inside yours. I can't climb inside Randy's, as hard as I've tried. You know, so really and truly, what you're describing is the fact that at the end of the day, the only truth any of us can honestly describe is our own.
Yeah.
Right, because when you were talking about God, I was talking about God. You know, the thing that actually makes God real in your life is when you have a personal revelation. There has to be some sort of thing of Jesus. Even this is doctrine, I think. I mean, Dad can tell me, but Jesus has to reveal himself to you for, you know, it to really come full circle. If you don't ever have a revelation personally of Christ, the Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, I mean, it's not going to be concrete in your life.
What is that exactly? That experience of Jesus that separates it from just having a relationship with God.
Yeah.
I assume these are 2 separate things.
Yes. And it's interesting because everyone would say a complete, it's not the same for everyone, but everyone can describe a similar feeling of like I think when everything just clicks, but it will sometimes, like, it happens to, at different ages or different stages, or it's never the same. I can be at the same maybe worship event as somebody and they had their clicking moment, but I'm just like, oh, I just went to,
Sure.
So it's different for everybody, but I think it's the same feeling of knowing, like, I don't know, it's just a knowing.
There's something that happens in your head. Like, I was trying to think of what it was for me. For me, it's that God always provides, the biblical story of manna. Are you familiar with that?
Which one?
Manna.
The manna from heaven?
Down from heaven.
Sure. Yeah, it's during the 40 years. They're wandering around. Can't find a way to. Never mind.
Precisely.
Don't get me started. Carry on.
Yeah, Exodus, I think, is crazy book. For me, it's that God always provides me with manna because I've chosen to go an entrepreneurial path, but that path I found through going through so many twists and turns. I tried 5-6 different entrepreneurial routes, and I just did it by pushing on whatever door is open. And for me, that's how God, for me, I know, because I don't actually have to worry about having enough material things. And even though I don't worry, somehow money finds its way into my bank account. Maybe I sell a painting when it's really low. Maybe I have a show and it just happens to be enough for my rent. Maybe I get an opportunity, right? And like, luck, opportunity, my family, like, being generous.
Is it possible, Lucas, that an entrepreneurial person like you is more responsible for the manna coming to them than any other entity?
I mean, I would like to say that, and I hope so. And I do try every day my best.
That's where I lay all the credit. I give it to you. Every time I hear you talk about the stuff you're doing, I think that kid's amazing.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
That young man is a kid. You're all kids.
Showing your age, Alan. You're showing your age.
No, you can't have your ball back either.
Nah, thanks. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, who knows at the end of the day, but for me, that's how I see it.
And I do think there's a connection, because Alan and I have talked a lot about a sense of wonder and awe at being a part of the universe, that there are kind of moments where maybe you're out at Mammoth or somewhere out in beauty or nature, and you kind of lose yourself in the beauty and just feel like, wow, it's incredible to be a part of this. Well, I know, one of the descriptions that made sense to me of kind of what we're talking about in terms of people coming to faith is similar to that. It's this idea of feeling like you experience something much bigger than just you, that somehow puts all the pieces together inside of you in a way that they haven't been put together before, or there's a sense of peace that a lot of people experience, or a sense of direction or purpose. But there's a similarity with just that experience of awe that I think for a lot of people, when they have that experience in terms of their faith as well. And then that's that kind of occurs at different times too. You'll find different times. You can't control it, just like you can't control the experience of awe. It's like if you're losing yourself in the beauty of the mountains and you start trying to analyze it, it evaporates, man. It's like, okay, I just totally blew that experience because I was trying to control it. But it's similar sometimes with this faith experience that people talk about.
And sometimes awe happens in very strange mortal places. I once went to the theater, a play that I went to because my parents had tickets, but I was living in Baltimore. It was just after college. It was at an Equity Lord House. It was a good theater with really good actors. And it was for a production of James Baldwin's The Amen Corner, which is about a Front Street church in Harlem. And my parents couldn't make the plans. So they said, we don't want to waste the tickets. They gave me the ticket, and James Baldwin, they play about black religious people in Harlem. This cannot possibly speak to me. And I did not want to go, but I went. And it was a transcendent experience. Blew me away. First of all, the music, it's gospel. How can you not get sucked into gospel? Stupid white person. How can you not get, you're going to get sucked into gospel? You're dumb. Yeah. So, man, did I get amazing. I got sucked into every one of those characters. Meant they reverberated inside me. I understood every last bit of their ache, their pain. It was because they're humans, and so that was the first transcendent lesson: is don't judge, do not prejudge, do not do that. And at the end of the play, I was the last person in the audience. They literally had to come and get me and make me leave the theater because it was as close to a religious experience as I'm likely to have.
See, and that's it. It's those kinds of experiences are, motivate us. They stick with us, and I think even kind of drive us to like, where do I find more of that? That was amazing. Where do I find more of that? And I think that's a key part of this whole journey we've been talking about for 40 some odd podcasts. But it's like, how do you get more of it? And what does it mean? And all that stuff. So
we asked the question, where do you go looking for truth?
Yeah.
And I found truth that day in the theater.
Yep. Yeah.
And I've found truth in the theater a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And each and every time it has left the same mark on my consciousness and my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
One last footnote on the Amen Corner. When I was doing The Outer Limits, a sci-fi TV show a bunch of years ago, 20 years ago in Vancouver, I did an episode about a blues artist. And so we hired an American actor to play this blues guitarist, and it was the lead actor from the Amen Corner.
Oh wow!
No way.
A guy named Bill Cobbs. And when they told me that it was Bill Cobbs.
What was the name? It cut off.
Bill Cobbs. Bill Cobbs,
Yeah.
Wonderful actor. And I got to not only did Bill give me a theatrical experience that was transcendent, I got to work with the man.
Aww.
And that was even more transcendent.
Yep.
So there, and on that bombshell, since Randy's got to get out of here.
I can only imagine. That's amazing.
Well,
I want to ask one other thing of
go ahead. So
related to that, which is
we'll stick a pin in the bombshell for a second.
That's right. Like where do you feel like
make it worse?
Where have you guys like experienced the truth? Like, have you had an experience like Alan was talking about that you could describe?
It would have to be, the only one that comes to mind might be when I was in my car. I'd come back from the gym and I parked my car and I was listening to worship music. And like you said, gospel really sucks you in. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to worship, and I think I just related to those lyrics so much. It was about making room for God to kind of like move in your life at a point where I felt like I had gone to the end of myself. Like I'm tired myself out trying to figure life out, that I needed somebody to intervene. So those are what kind of the lyrics are about. And I remember I was just sitting there, and at first I was singing the song, just singing. Then all of a sudden I just burst into tears, like uncontrollably after singing, and then crying for a bit. And then I just kind of like fall over into the passenger seat, and the music is still playing, but to me it is complete silence. Like I can't hear a thing. I can't move. I'm aware that I'm on the passenger seat, but I don't know why I'm there and why I can't get up. And it feels like I shouldn't get up. It feels like I should just stay there. And then I'm just there and everything's quiet. And it was the first time I ever felt like quietness in my heart and like mind and in the world. It just was like complete, total silence and peace. And it felt like I just went somewhere else. And then I came back and I was like, oh, the car is still on, the music is still playing. But I just was somewhere where it was complete quiet for like a good 30 seconds. It's like, I need that peace. I need that silence, you know? So that's kind of what started like that seeking for that.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
I was wondering, as you were talking, it was making me think, why do we define those type of experiences, Alan, as you described, Karen, as you described, why are we describing that as truth? I think that's very interesting.
True.
Why do those strike us as truth?
Yeah.
My first thought is because they resonate so profoundly inside us.
It's like, this has got to be something that's not subjective, because you guys, what it sounds like you experience is probably pretty similar. And I have an experience like that as well, where I know what she's talking about. My spirit was lifted to a different place where I was listening to Even Star by Lord of the Rings on repeat at 5 a.m. That's like one of my favorite classical pieces of all time. And I just kept listening to it while I was praying, and I felt my spirit was like this.
Sure.
It was crazy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I mean, that's part of the human experience. And it just strikes me, I know we're running out of time here, but I think one of the things when we talk about truth and even eternal truth, one of the things I think that I feel like is true and we have to come to grips with is, as human beings, we are limited by the very nature of who we are. I mean, we're limited in what we experience in reality. We're limited. I mean, that's part of being human. You know, you're not human if you're not limited, right? So we're limited. And when we're talking about truth, we're almost always, it's some kind of an experience that's outside of us. And so there's a sense of somehow we're connecting with something that's bigger than us individually, whether it's this stage show that's just mind blowing and it's like something's going on with this, or it's the experience like you shared, Karen, and Lucas, you shared. But to me, there's something in there about why we struggle with truth, like our truth or having the absolute truth or whatever. Part of it is that we're limited as human beings, but when we engage with stuff that's outside of us and seems bigger than us, then it's like, wait, maybe I'm getting closer to something that's true, you know. And I would say by the nature of the cosmos, it makes sense because we're limited, and there's this huge thing we're a part of that's way bigger than us and is functioning without us, you know, or with us. And so when we connect to bigger stuff somehow, and because peace is always a big part of it too, right? I mean, there's some kind of, it's like pieces fall into place with these kinds of experiences, right? Yeah. So anyway, it's just, you know, I think we've totally answered the question of what generations owe each other. So I think maybe we need to rename this one Truth or something. I don't know.
Yes.
Well, that's what the generations owe each other.
Yeah.
There
you go. Truth. That's right. So that ties it all back because Karen said that at first, right?
Yeah. No, it's a great answer to the question. And even though one generation may deny that it owes the truth, deny all you like.
The other one denies that truth even exists.
There you go. That's right. So, but
anyway, and on that bombshell.
Yes, very good. Well done.
Yeah, it's a dangerous room.
Karen, what a pleasure to meet you. It's always a pleasure to see you. Randy, well, Hank.
Yeah, good to see you again, Al. Yeah, definitely. And thanks you guys for being on with us. Much appreciated. And and check out Karen's YouTube channel.
Oh, yes. We'll
King Cora. Make sure to check
we'll put a link on the page.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Our pleasure. We look forward to doing it again. And thank you, everybody.
Yep. Have a great week. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Peace. Yeah.
That's it.